on our behalf of the American GI Forum, I'm the current commander. I've been involved since 2006, but I go back, you know, to the Fiestas and the Queens and all that festivals that we had for many years. So it's a pleasure for us to get together here today and pay our respects and recognize that what a great man, you know, that came to the American GI Forum and did so much for us, did so much, you know. And one thing that I would like to, as a commander is not only recognize, you know, people that have contributed and people that are done so much for our communities and our raza, you know. Not only do so when they pass away, but let's do it before they pass away. And recognize so many people out there that have contributed and done so much, and David being one of them. So once again, it's an honor for us to have this get-together, this memorial, and we thank you for being with us today. We've got so many friends of David, friends of the Forum, and including our president board, the American GI Forum. So one more thing, we're getting close, San Jose is getting close to celebrate 60 years of service, of commitment here in the east side, here in San Jose. So we'll be planning a big event in 2019, so looking forward to seeing some of you come back and join us in celebrating 60 years of service of the American GI Forum. Okay? Okay. So next we have, we're going to do, it's a custom within our forum to do our prayer before we start a program. And at this point I'm going to have one of our board officers, Alberto Carrillo, do our prayer of the Sisi.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Amen.
Gracias. I'd like to start off with a very, very important person that was very important to David for many years, and especially these last years. And un aplauso para John Zamora.
I'd like to read a letter that so often emailed me and wanted me to convey this to all of you that are here. I was so very sad, and it's dedicated to his wife, Gloria. I was so very sad to learn that David has passed away. He was a wonderful man who made such an important difference in our community. He will live on the lives of others who he had touched with his good works. Please accept my sincere condolence. You and all of the family are in my prayers. Congresswoman Zoloffer. We all know he gave so much of himself to make the GI Forum, I think, the #1 chapter in the United States, and that's a hard achievement. He had no favorites. He only wanted what was best for the organization, and he had the guts to call the shots the way they were. And that was the respect that I had for him, because he had the power of being a good writer. And with his writings, he put a lot of people straight. He didn't mind making enemies as long as he did what we thought was the best for the organization, or for the community, or for the city he lived in. I didn't have too much doings with Dave with the GI Forum. My remembrance of him is more on the social. When I met Dave in 1959, when he came to San Jose, and he was organizing a baseball league, and he recruited me to play for him. So I played for him, and he was the manager. And later he became the chairman of the league that we played, the UCC league, anyway. And he surprised me because he didn't play, but he was a manager and he knew everything you can possibly think of baseball and stuff. We played softball, but he knew everything to do it. One thing that stands out, and I shared this last week with some of the people that are here, we were playing for the championship, and there was a tight game, last inning, and I got on with a bunt. And then he told me he wanted me to steal second base. We had 2 outs. And he said, I want you to go right into the third base, and I want you to just hit him as hard as you can, because he's going to get in front of you. He's going to block the base. I said, sir. So I did that. As soon as I heard the ball get hit, I took off. And I ran in hard as I could, and the ball fell off his hands, and I ran in home. And we won the game, and we won the championship. And I was dusting myself off, and I went over there, and I see Dave shaking hands and patting everybody in the back, and everybody patting him in the back. And I said, what about me? He says, you didn't make the call, I did. That was Dave. He knew how to get you, okay? And then it became so close that 1959, the latter part of 1959, I was going to get married with my wife, and I selected Dave to be one of my persons, and my wife selected Gloria. So Gloria was like a friend, family friend to my wife, and Dave was a very good friend of mine. So we introduced him at one of our parties, and what did he do? We introduced him to Gloria, and 3 months later they got married, so they couldn't be part of our wedding, because he spent all his money getting his arrangements over there. So the years went on, and we continued being friends. 4 years ago, we visited him, and I saw that Gloria was starting to be slow, and he couldn't hear anymore, of course, we all know that, and neither could I at that time. I got hearing aids now, but I got closer to him because I understood. He couldn't hear anybody, so we got accustomed to writing to each other. And for the past 4 years, I cared for anything that he wanted me to do. We'd drive around all over town on anything that he wanted to do. So we became real close. And he told me a lot of stories. I heard them all. And I was impressed with the accomplishments. I was impressed with everything he did. I wasn't really prepared here to talk about too much of anything. But I want you to know that I really cared for that man. And I know how hard he worked for everything. Money didn't mean anything to him. His accomplishment is getting the job done that he cared. I'm going to end this, and I hope you don't throw me out of the room. And I hope I don't embarrass my wife. But he wanted me to write music to one of his poems, because he used to write a lot of poems. I didn't have time. But I changed a few words in a song, and I want to share it with you. I'm not a vocalist. I hope I don't forget the words as I go on. It goes like this. It's an old Ray Price country western song. I know you're tired of doing all we ever wanted. You no longer have to do the things we do. What matters now? What will we do with all the memories and the dreams of all the things we'll never do? But I won't mention this again. I won't think about tomorrow. We'll let it happen each hour, day by day. But let me tell you before you go how much we love you. Then we'll keep you in our prayer till we meet again, my friend. And I'll see you in our dreams until we meet again, my friend. I know your life has reached an early kind of autumn. In your heart the leaves are falling, spring is over. The summer sun that always shines is yours now, leaving only this winter in our soul. That I won't mention this again. I won't think about tomorrow. We'll let it happen each hour, day by day. But let me tell you before you go how much we love you. Then we'll keep you in our prayer until we meet again, my friend. And we'll see you in our dream until we meet again, my friend.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know we had John Frank Sinatra Zamora with us. You think you know somebody, and then this guy starts warbling. Man, that was wonderful. That was beautiful. Thank you, John. Very nice. And thank you, of course, for looking after David. You know, we were going through some of the stuff that he left to the Raza Historical Society, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that organization. On Saturday at Dr. Martinez's home, Betty's home, and I noticed in his draft card, it said Eliseo NMI Sierra. NMI means no middle initial. Turns out that his school in Woodlake, which is up against the Sierra Mountains, the teacher he had either didn't want to say it or he wasn't able to say Eliseo. So he called him David. He said, your name's going to be David. And his classmates started saying, hey, David, how you doing? So se le pegó. So he used David because he was able to communicate a lot easier with people by saying, yeah, my name's Dave, David, call me Dave, instead of Eliseo. I was just saying to somebody earlier that I named my oldest son after the uncle who named me, and my uncle's name was Tomas. So I named my oldest son Tomas. And I was talking to a neighbor, and Tomas was about 4 years old, and I introduced my neighbor to my son Tomas, and this is so-and-so. And I started talking, and my son started pulling on my clothes. I said, just a second, son. It's bad. And I said, excuse me just a second, what is it, son? He says, no mas, just Tom.
No mas?
No mas, just Tom. So a lot of times people change their names to fit in more readily. You all know Al, don't you? Alcario, also known as Alcario, but he calls him Al. But it's just the way things are in this country and in this world. We like to fit in. Except for a guy named Fernando. I can't come up with anything else other than Fernando, so you're stuck with that. David Sierra was one interesting fellow because he had a rural education. He grew up in a country sort of setting. They had a lot of orange groves and lemons. But yet he had a very accomplished and well-honed vocabulary. And he had a good mind. He was a very bright man. Good mind, and he was able to put together thoughts. And the other thing that I noticed about Dave is that he had really a strong conscience about injustice. And he felt strongly a lot of the mistreatment and the segregation that we experienced in the society. And he wasn't afraid to talk about it and write about it. He did that with a lot of panache, a lot of style. And so he was able to get the attention of the Mercury News. He was able to get the attention of other publications who, whenever they had any questions about our community, they often spoke with David. One thing I noticed, though, in going through the many artifacts that were left to the Raza Historical Society, I was helping Dr. Martinez and Richard Alejandro and Alberto Carrillo and Bert Garcia. They came over to help go through some of these papers and some of these photographs. And I have to tell you, I only saw one picture in which he was smiling. He always had a very serious look to it whenever they took his pictures. And I didn't know that about David. I would have asked him, hey man, how about showing us a smile every now and then? But he was a very influential in helping the GI Forum be a serious institution. And like Al said, we had, as I was the MC for many of these Fiestas, Patrias, the 5 de Mayo, the 16th of September, we had 100,000 people, 100,000 people there. And so that was a major, major event, that people would come from Salinas, and come from Fresno, and they'd come from Oakland and San Francisco, just because we had these marvelous parades that were sponsored by the GI Forum. Unfortunately, we have some gang problems, and they would cause difficulties for the city in any gathering, and they still do. But the problem for us was the city would charge the GI Forum for the extra money that was spent in trying to put down some of these riots that these gangs would start. I noticed they never do that during Mardi Gras, and I noticed they don't do that during St. Patrick's Day, but they did it when we had our Fiestas, Patrias. And so we don't have those anymore just because it got too expensive. Let me go now to talk about all of what you see here and what you see on these tables. This is the residue of a very fruitful life. This tells you a little bit about a guy who worked hard in his community. And now we have the honor, the opportunity to document his life. And what we're going to do, I mean the Raza Historical Society, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization formally set up a year and a half ago. What we intend to do is gather information like this and digitize it so that it will be available to other scholars or to other people who might have an interest in knowing who were these people that settled in San Jose. G. Flemante, a fellow lawyer here, says, where was the Mayfair Packing Company? I never heard of it. I said, oh yeah, it was just down the street over here. It was the Lobo family that had it. But we need to document who our people were, what we did, and not all of us are going to be mayors, not all of us are going to be on the city council, where they do keep records of those sort of people. But who settled here? Who did all the work? That's what we want to do. Now, there should be on your table a form that asks you to provide us with your name and address, and if you have a story of historical significance, of interest, that you think you'd like us to know about, because we can do that. We can take that. We will do what Bert Garcia is doing, and that is they're digitizing all of these magazines, the Eccentrico magazines. They talk about that in one of the documents that's there. They are going to digitize those so that people can access those and find out who they were. And you can find out from there who was Eliseo Herrera. Well, you can look it up because he is going to be in there. Who was Jim Clemente? He'll be in there too. But so will the rest of you who give us your name and address and gather up information that you have, because we don't know how much each of you knows. Only you can tell us, and only you can let us know that you've got something to say about your family, or about someone in your family that came here, or that had done something of significance, who got an award during World War II, or the Korean War, or afterwards. We have lots of people who were brave individuals who lost their families, lost their lives. We need to know those histories so we can document them and make them available. Now, finally, there's also on your table something on History San Jose. There's a documentary. This guy, David Bacon, took photographs of migrant workers. 1903 was when we had the first farm worker strike. 1903. And we saw this weekend this picture called Adios Amor, which was a picture about a woman named Maria Martinez Moreno. No relation, I understand, Roman. But I never heard of her before. And this woman, Lori Coyles, was looking for work for information about Cesar Chavez, and she kept running across this name of Maria Moreno. And so she got interested in learning about her and found out she was active in organizing for the farm workers in 1940s, 1950s, before Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. Well, that's a bit of history that we would not have known about if she hadn't done that research. And the same thing can happen to all the rest of us here. Unless you let somebody know, there's no way that we're going to be able to record what happened with your family and your ancestors or your children. So with that, I wanted to say David Sierra was a marvelous example of what can be done with an education, and he will be remembered and certainly sorely missed as one of our leading examples of people who cared in our community and stayed with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Next we have Bert Garcia, Jr. from El Centrico.
Sí, thank you. Good evening. I am Bert Garcia from La Raza Historical Society. In addition to that, I just want to tell you a little bit of history about David in reference to our magazine. My father is Humberto Garcia II. He's the founder, publisher, editor, printer of El Eccentrico magazine, a Spanish-English publication that was in the Bay Area serving La Raza Society for 32 years. The first copy was in April 1949 and went all the way through April of 1981. In 1974, upon the death of my father, I continued to publish El Eccentrico and run a printing company for another additional 8 years. We sincerely owe a debt of gratitude to Eliseo David Sierra. He contributed many, many articles, as you are very well aware, and he was an assistant editor. And I brought today his very first article that he published in El Eccentrico. in January 1960. And I bring it because it shows his poignancy, his eloquency, his mind and humor. He writes an article, his first article was, "This is San Jose." And so he makes a few poignant observations on other cities. And it says, I won't read all of it, but I'll read you parts of it. Every town, city, and metropolis in the country has a distinctive personality, a spirit, a way of life all its own. Cities are very much like people, behaving differently, dressing in a different manner, and thinking unlike any other. San Francisco is a well-dressed, intelligent, cultured business executive. New York City is a blaze, sophisticated mass of world whose winters are spent in Miami Beach. San Diego is a carefree, money-spending, beer-drinking sailor. Hollywood is a loan shark, a fast-talking, spectacular, in-phony enterprises with a complete lack of understanding for the word truth. La Jolla is a rich, cultured, and intelligent beyond his years. He plays tennis, goes to the theater, lives on the oceanside cabana the year around. San Jose, the bells of St. Joseph Catholic Church, trolling early dawns, heralding the arrival of a newly born day, bringing with its hopes and the expectations and the promise. Columbus, the crowds of Columbus Park on Sunday afternoon, interactive football and softball, the battles waged as the combatants' very lives as if it depended on the outcome. The third and first Saturday of each month, the big question. Did you see what Esther Medina said in Alexandrico magazine? Bellman Prep, two worlds in the mind of every proud father experiencing his young son's first steps, his first words. The view from Mount Hamilton, a sleeping village with one eye open, always a city that sparkles, three tongues commanding an entire valley, the ramparts watched by rows upon row of green, lush greenery, and three sides and water in the dingy bay on the other. This is San Jose, the Garden State, Canaries, a growing, optimistic child, full of confidence, aware that the future holds for the bigger and better tomorrow. It is all of this, and so much more. And that was his very first article. I personally owe a debt of gratitude to Dave. In the 1970s, I was finishing up a master's degree, and at that time it was pre-computers and pre-spell checks. And so I typed up half this document, 250 pages, and I had a lot of chicken scratch. And I took this great big pile and I dumped it on David's lap. I said, "David, help, please." He looked at this manuscript and said, "You are kidding. I can't even read some of this scratch that you have here. How in a..." "David, that's why it's with you. I knew you could do it." 6 weeks later, he had rewritten, typed, and I had a full 200 pages worth of documentation submitted for approval, and it was. So I'm forever eternally grateful for Dave. More importantly, though, I think what Eliseo Sierra has provided is a vital and inspirational legacy. For the years of his public service, his involvements and innumerable community contributions. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you, Bert. Next. Blanca, no? Come up. And who has been very instrumental in putting this together. But a round of applause for Mr. Castellano, Al Castellano.
It's good to see a lot of my old former JAG former friends here today. I'm glad to see you here. Some of you I haven't seen in years, and some of you haven't changed a bit. But anyhow, here we are. Number one, this is all about David. Number one, I want to thank John Samora for being our caretaker for David and Gloria and for underwriting today's service. Thanks to Mario Sanchez and the JAG Forum for organizing the memorial service today. I met with the JAG Forum about a month ago, and I told them about David. Of course, they already knew, and I told them that that Mario, no, excuse me, not Mario, but John was in charge of the services for David, and Mario said he would call John, and the rest is history. Here we are. We were able to organize this service for David. Another person I want to thank very much is thanks to Ramon Martinez. He was the first person to inform me of David's passing. He also wrote the obituary article that appeared in the San Jose Mercury last Saturday morning. Thanks also to Gus Lerma for connecting with Ramon Martinez and giving me information about David. Gus had a history of David that he had written about him several years ago, and I was just surprised as how much information he had. He passed it over to Ramon, and they together put the obituary together, and we got it printed in the Mercury. David was also a very active member of the American JAG Forum. Some of his activities were to begin with, the San Jose Fiestas Patrias, which was our biggest attraction that we had in San Jose, or this is the biggest attraction San Jose ever had. We would get thousands of people here for a one-day festivity. 2,000, 3,000 was very normal across the half for just one day. No other organization got that many people together in San Jose ever. I want to add to you, let you know that I think over 1 million people came to the Fiestas Patrias celebrations that we had in San Jose. I think it was 18 or so years that we had them. No other organization got that many people ever in San Jose, and I don't think they ever will. David was instrumental in organizing the parade award luncheons. He ordered the trophies, the food, etc., etc. Every time there was a parade, we would have prizes for the contestants that put on the best show, and we would have a luncheon for them, and David was usually in charge of that. David would sometimes be the master of ceremonies for the American JAG Forum Scholarship Foundation Awards dinners. He was always there as a mentor, and also very helpful to keep the dinner going. He was always promoting the JAG Forum at the county he was always promoting the JAG Forum throughout the county or other functions that were happening in San Jose. He was always there with a GI Forum display, telling the people about the GI Forum and what we were all about. And he and his wife were there, and I used to help him quite a bit, but there was always somebody there to keep the show going and to keep the interest in the American GI Forum. He also was in charge of the newsletter. He used to write, I think it was a monthly newsletter, and he would give us all a copy of it to let us know what was going on in our forum, and also what's going on in the National GI Forum, and the National GI Forum doings. David and Gloria were married for many years and always expressed joy in being together. Thank you for being here today, and I'm glad you all came, and again, thank you.
We'd also introduce another very close friend of David that knew him for many years and did so many wonderful things along with him. And once again, this person pretty much put all these displays. So on behalf of the GI Forum, one of our members, very active members, that has always been with us for the good and the bad. How about a round of applause for Augie Lerma?
The few, the proud, the American GI Forum. Thank you for being here. The first thing I want to do is also express our condolences to Gloria, the Sierra family, and all of his friends. As we bid farewell to David, let us be mindful that the things that we shared tonight are a testament to a man with many talents, which he shared willingly. In some of his interviews, he would mention that his choice was staying with the community, the barrio, as he often said. His many activities were a testament and aimed at making all of our tomorrows better. Like many of us, he wasn't perfect, but he tried mightily to overcome. The last time that I saw David was at the Kaiser facilities in Milpitas. We ran into each other there in front of the pharmacy, and we chatted, shared a few funny stories, and then we left. Little did we know that that would be our last encounter. So today, as we share stories and such, relish the time spent with each other, because you never know. In closing, I'd like to recite a prayer. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor es contigo, bendita tú eres entre todas las mujeres, y bendito es el fruto de tu vientre Jesús. Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros los pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amén. My good friend David, until we meet again, descansa en paz.
Amen.
Gracias, Augie. Okay, at this time, we're going to open it up for the audience. And just come up and say your name and share some thoughts, share some stories, and we'll go from there.
Good evening. My name is Danny Garza. I've been in the community active for a long time. Well, we found out one year that the city wanted to build a community pool in Coyote at the expense of the 4 pools in the community, Ryden Park, Alviso, Gardner, and here. Well, Blanca had already got this pool and this community center built. But the other 3 needed assistance, they needed help. Gardner called me. He said, Danny, help us keep our pool open. And so, go, wow, that's a tough job, man. How am I going to do that? And we're fighting, you know, big business here at the new community pool that want to put a Coyote. And our children were going to suffer. So I took that on. I worked with the Gardner community, and I asked my dad, hey, Dad, you were on city council, or how did these pools get built? And he goes, you know who has the real facts? Dave Sierra. So I knew what my dad had told me, so I went over here to the community center. My mom knew where Dave was, because my mom had just retired and was volunteering there. So, you know, God puts us in strange places at the right time. And so I was able to sit down and type out my questions on this little iPad. And he told me, you know what? Go to the city archives, go look up model cities and the contracts that the city had with 280 Caltrans. So it was Caltrans, model cities, the city, and the community. And what he said was something very interesting. The contract was the city would keep these pools open for life. And guess what? He was right, because they didn't build the Coyote Swim Center, and they fixed all 3 pools.
My name is Frank Garcia, and I knew Dave when I got out of the Army in 1970. I went, my uncle is JB, and I visited JB's barbershop when I got out of the service, and I was always proud of my uncle. My dad retired from the Navy, and my uncle served in the Marine Corps, both in World War II and Korea. So I was proud of both the men. So I would visit JB, and he introduced me to Dave. And I was really impressed with Dave because he was one of the only person I ever met that knew where Farmersville was. Because I lived in San Jose, but for 70 years now. But I also would live in Farmersville during when we would move our crops. I mean, as workers, field workers, we'd go up and do work there once I was out down here in this area. So I knew Ivanhoe, Woodlake, Lemon Cove, all those little towns, and Dave knew them really well too, because one of the big things you would do in that area was play baseball. And you would play, Farmersville would play Porterville or Woodlake, and it was a big, big thing. So I really loved Dave and his time. He would scare me sometimes because I wasn't very argumentative. My uncle raised us to be quiet, not to let the elders talk. And so Dave was just, he would, whether he was sober or had a few too many, he would say his peace of mind, and he would tell you how things were. And that was always refreshing. Unfortunately, Jimmy and I were Republicans, And Dave was really enjoyed speaking to us about our thoughts, but he was very good about it. Gloria and Dave were just wonderful people. I lost contact with Dave because in my struggles with sobriety, I had to think of my family, raising the family, the kids, getting them to college, getting a lot of things done. And I would see Dave at times and talk to him. Once he introduced me to Lalo Guerrero, and I didn't know who that gentleman was. And Dave just couldn't believe it. He thought, so took me aside and told me I need a refresher course. But he was just a really inspiration. I really wish I could have spent more time with him. He was always, he said his piece, but he was always polite. After everything was done, we'd come back and have another beer. Or we would go and eat somewhere. And Gloria was wonderful. Dave, just wonderful host. I really enjoyed knowing him. And listening to his, tell me about the Woodlake area, the real things in Woodlake. Because in, Farmersville, there were two sides. The Mexican side, and on the other side of the river were the Okies. And so he would tell me about Woodlake, how Woodlake was, and stuff. And I really enjoyed spending time with him. So for Dave Sierra, thank you very much. And also, when he got me involved with the GI Forum, I was sitting quietly having a beer. He said, "You're going to run for state office." And I said, "No, I'm not. I don't know anything." He said, "No, we need to fill this gap here. And if you run for it, our people will vote for it." And then it started going like, "I don't know anything about this politics." He says, "Go for it. You got it done. It's done. Dan Campos and I already got it ready. You're going to be the next chaplain, state chaplain." I said, "Okay." So I walked up, said a few words, which I mumbled, and I was elected. And David, I said, "Well, how did you know that?" I said, "Don't worry." But I really enjoyed his presence, and I'll miss him.
Ramon has a minute to say a few words.
Thank you. I just want to point out that La Raza Historical Society, the first bequeathment that we got are the papers of David Sierra. He kept your history. There are binders out there. We have at least 10 binders full of every minute that he saw in San Jose since 1960. We also have his baseball cap sitting on a couple of tables, and you have his plaques on different tables. The whole point of this is we need that from you. Your children, your grandchildren go to school, and the schools still don't know that they have any history, that they ever did anything about all the terrible things that happened to us. You have to leave this to them. So there's papers on your table. We need your phone number, your email, or at least your name and phone number, and we'll get back to you. But every one of your stories is very important. And we have to talk about your saving your mother's apron, your grandma's chanclas. It's all historic stuff. Anyway, as we get to the end, I have 8 videos of all this material that we have right here, and I'll give them to 8 people that we pulled, but you gotta fill out, doesn't matter what, a piece of paper, a business card, a way to get a hold of you. Thank you.
Okay, Ramon. Now we have El Garza and Blanca Alvarado.
Anyway, mine's going to be short. I was raised here in San Jose from 1946 when we came from El Paso. I didn't know very many Mexican people except the merchants, the people who used to own the stores and maybe ran the service station. And I remember I joined CSO. I don't CSO, I joined CSO, and that's where I met Lino, Rubius, and others. And then I got talked into taking over the chairmanship. I mean, I was here a college graduate, green as those walls. And they said, well, we need a chairman, we need a president for MAPA. And I didn't know, they didn't tell me any story other than MAPA had been decertified because about 3 or 4 years before that, entre los Mexicanos, one group was recruiting Americans, Anglos, and so the other group started to recruit Anglos. And before long, no había más que 2 o 3 Mexicanos en MAPA, and the rest were Anglos. Wow. So the state chairmanship took the certificate away from MAPA. Nobody told me that. So I walked into the GI Forum at Lina Manriquez Hall again. It became Locker's Hall over here. And one of the first guys that I met was this very vocal, I'm not going to repeat his words, because one thing you know about Dave Sierra, if you asked him a question and he didn't like the guy, he would describe him in very, very colorful terms. And I remember one time that Dave told me the word lambiscon. How many of you know what the word lambiscon means?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. So, he said, Garza, you go tell that guy that he is the greatest lambiscon in the Mexican community. So I did. Everybody was patting David in the back, so I thought he was a hell of a nice guy. So I went and told this police lieutenant that he was a lambiscon. That's how I first met Dave Sierra. And he would describe everybody that way, and I grew to have a lot of respect for him. Remember, Dave Sierra used to work for the publisher on 4th Street. That's where he used to publish the GI Forum newsletter, everything, free, because he worked there, and he worked there after hours to do the work so that it wouldn't cost the organization very much money, or any money at all, except maybe for the paper, not even for the ink. And that just about as much. I can tell you, when I ended up being in political office and running for elections and stuff, I always could count on David for his help, and I could always count on him referring other people, except I won't forget that first time I ran it. He sent me over to talk to the Lambiscon, the Chicano community. But God rest him, que Dios lo bendiga, and he save his soul in heaven, because it's going to be a long time before this community has someone like David, with the talents that he had. And he may have not been everyone's favorite guy, but you never had to really guess very long where David stood on an issue or on a person. Never. And I don't know. I have no idea what's happened to Gloria. Oh, she's in the hospital, Gloria. So perhaps maybe I can get a hold of somebody so we can go visit, or at least I'd like to go visit her and stuff like that. But let me also then take the time that when my 9 years were over in the city council, Blanca came and took over, and I mean she did so many good things for this community. And no one's been around more or less to write them down, because we haven't had a David. So I thank you, a lot of you that I met in the GI Forum over the years. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Blanca Alvarado, longtime city council member of San Jose, first Latino woman on there, and also then on the board of supervisors for 8 years. 14 years. Wow. 14 years.
It's really, really good to see you again, Al. It's been a long time. And I would say that Mary Lou and Johnny Zamora deserve to be recognized as the epitome of human kindness. They are the sweetest couple, two of my favorite people in the whole world, and I will tell you, Johnny and Mary Lou, that your son is following in your footsteps. We had breakfast with him just a few days ago. And for those of you who don't know it, the Omelet House on Alum Rock Avenue near White, Johnny's restaurant, serves a really, really good breakfast. But, you know, we're here to celebrate the life of our friend David Sierra. But I cannot talk about David without talking about Gloria. Because Gloria and David were a team. And while much has been said about David's dedication to the GI Forum, the endless, devoted, dedicated work that he did at Vida Nueva, what stands out for me is the twosome. They did everything together. And they were a couple like no other couple, maybe like you two. But David was a very unique, one-of-a-kind person. He was as authentic as they come. I think Al was absolutely right. When he spoke his mind, David spoke truth to power all the time. He was never intimidated by this community. He was never intimidated by the establishment. He believed what he believed, and he was very, very clear in stating what he believed in. And he believed in the GI Forum. And I think that he had tremendous pride and felt really honored to exemplify patriotism in the Latino way. Because he wore, you know, his service record with a great deal of pride. And wherever he showed himself as a veteran, as part of the GI Forum, he did it con gusto y con ganas y con honor. I remember all the years that, God, he was a tireless advocate for community. I think in today's words, you could call him one of the exemplary citizens of civic engagement. It wasn't just the struggles that he was front and center for Latinos, for veterans, for the alcoholics of Vida Nueva. I mean, he was in front and center on all kinds of issues having to do with equality, or where he saw injustice, he was one of the first to speak out. I remember too, when I was elected to the city council, I think that he was very proud of that accomplishment that we shared in, because you know, you don't get elected without the support of the voters. And with David and with Gloria, we had known each other through thick and thin on a lot of levels. But they had a great deal of love for me, and I had a great deal of love for them as well. And I know that they always spoke about me and to me with pride and with a great deal of cariño. I remember going to their apartment, and during campaign season, don't you worry, Blanca, we got this apartment complex all covered. You're in, you're gonna win. And they did. I think that they literally walked the entire complex over here on Jackson Avenue. And they were responsible for getting people to vote for me, because David Sierra and Gloria thought I was the best person for the job. They were not bashful people at all. They were not timid at all. And so in my loving memory of David and Gloria, it is, oh my God, I wish you were here today, because when you consider what Latinos, what our communities are faced with in light of the administration in Washington. He would have been out on the street making a lot of noise. David would have called things as they are, as racist, as opportunist, as ugly and black and dirty. But David isn't here with us anymore, but we can certainly remember him. We can certainly exemplify him in our own actions. And whatever you do for one another and for each other, I can say that Johnny and Mary Lou are still living the kind of behavior that we all loved David and Gloria so much for. Gracias.
Win, wanna come up?
Hi, you've probably never seen my face before, but I've seen David's face plenty of times because he was a regular at Eastside Neighborhood Center where I am fortunate enough to be the program supervisor of. When I first started, I did not know what I was doing. On my first day, I sat in front of the computer with nothing to do. I wandered into the dining hall, he was sitting there, and I sat down next to him, and he was like, "You want to help me with my iPad?" And that was an ongoing thing. He was very technologically advanced, actually, and I want to attest to the fact that his love for Gloria was very strong. She would come every Tuesday and Thursday, and he'd be ready, waiting for her. Stand up, walk halfway to where she was, give her a big hug and kiss. I mean, he loved her so much he kissed her and she fell down once. And he was so funny, and his incredible sense of humor. One time, this woman came in to do a presentation, took her an hour and a half. He called over one of our volunteers and said, "The UN was formed in 20 minutes. This woman's been talking for an hour and a half." And he'd pull me aside every once in a while, and he'd be like, "Hey," my favorite joke of his, I'll remember it always, "What happens to bad girls after 21? I'm like, "What?" He goes, "They turn 22. And that's how I'm going to remember him. I'm going to remember him as someone who really loved his wife and was passionate about what he did, and it was hilarious. And I am blessed to have known him for those 2 short years. I feel like I'm luckier than people who hadn't known him at all. So thank you for the opportunity for letting me speak.
Good evening, Eliseo Guerrero. I'm a member of the San Jose American GI Forum and veteran, United States Navy, and proud son of a United States Army World War II combat veteran, born in Mexico and United States Army veteran. 40 years ago, I was a young public defender here in Santa Clara County. I was assigned to the drunk driving cases, and I was representing 2 clients who were in jail, locked up in prisoner's uniform. They clearly had a problem with alcohol. That's why they were in jail. And I was arguing to the judge that what we needed to do was provide them help, give them some program for their drinking problem. And the judge would say, "Well, where are they going to get the help? What are they going to do?" I didn't know, but somewhere in the back of the audience, a big voice rang out and said, "We can help, Judge." Trying to look around, David Sierra, sitting around, he was representing Villanueva, the sober living environment of American GI Forum. My first time I met him, walked over to him and said, "So, who are you? What is Villanueva? And can you help these 2 guys?" One of them was a veteran. And David then told me, "Yes, we have a program. They can live there. We'll help them. We'll give them treatment for the drinking problem. We'll help them find a job." I walked back up and said, "Judge, we can solve this problem. Stand up." Representative Villanueva, David Sierra, stands up. "We can take care of that, Judge." And the judge said, "Well, we can get them over there. If they get official transportation, they can get out tonight." Trying to look at David. goes like this. Yes, Judge, we can get him out tonight. So David personally picked him up at the jail, drove him to the program. Every month, David would be in court giving a report to the judge about their progress. He helped those two individuals, and for that year I was assigned to the drunk driving court, David was always there in court, looking to help, saying, here we are, we're the GI Forum, we're Vida Nueva, we can help you. One time, a person went to the program, voluntarily left the program, and they got busted again for drunk driving. And the judge said, we're going to lock him up now. He didn't learn anything. I turned and looked at David. It's my first year as a public defender, and I'm saying, well, of course, David, now what's my argument? Judge is right. The guy messed up. And David tells me, yes, he did mess up, but everyone's entitled to a second chance. He needs more help, not less help. So you can lock him up and throw away the key, but that won't solve his drinking problem. So I stood up to the judge and said, Judge, you know what? We can lock him up and throw away the key, but that won't solve his drinking problem. That argument won the day. I go over there and said, well, David, I'm going to pay you what they're paying me, 0. I was a public defender. But we got that guy out, back into the Vida Nueva program. He was successfully completed the program and became a productive citizen, productive member of society. That was David Sierra, a longtime member of the American GI Forum. I'm proud to be a member of the GI Forum. I'm proud to be part of this organization. And to David, I say, I salute you.
Thank you.
David really liked to encourage people. He thought that people could do anything they wanted to do. And he would go ahead and encourage you to run for different offices. And I remember when David decided that I could run for commander of the American GI Forum chapter. And so he really encouraged me to run, and I did. I lost that one. But then he also encouraged me to run for second vice commander of the state of California GI Forum. And I said, no, I don't think I can do that. And he says, yes, you can. And he encouraged me to do it again. And I ran for second vice commander of the American GI Forum of California. And at that time, some of the older members decided, or they said, oh, she can't run for that office. And David said, oh, yes, she can. And so they went ahead and they voted me in. So David had a lot of successes in encouraging people to run for different offices and winning the position that he had encouraged you to run. So I really applaud David. He did great things, and he worked for our SLE program that we have, and he did a great job there. So I'm sorry to see and hear about David. I was there visiting him this past year, and I didn't know, like someone just mentioned a little while ago, that would be the last time that I would see him. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
But I was a young, tender 31-year-old when I met David. I had just become a single mother and wanted to get involved in the community and bring my children into an organization that was hopefully going to instill some values. When I was introduced to David, it was on Story Road, when we had the office right on Story Road. And the meetings were interesting. I guess is the best way to describe them. But when we had the new place, there was a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Darlene Marquez. She said, you know David? And I said, I know who he is. He said, let me introduce you to him. So I met him, and he said, are you new? And I like my first year being involved in the, I don't know if you remember Joe G. Lopez. So Joe Lopez used to go and recruit a lot of us young ladies to help out with the fiestas, and they needed help pouring beer. So here we are pouring beer. We had David, and he says, good job, good job, good job. Keep them selling, keep them selling. And so that's when the first time I went to my first fiesta. And I really admired the women at the time that were all involved in the GI Forum. And then I met my good friend Mary, and another lady's there, and I met Frank, his wife, and I think that's the only ones that are here from this chapter we were at. Mario, Augie, Lupe, but he had a brilliant mind. When I would speak to him, I was always fascinated to hear him speak because I was always learning from him. He was someone that you could truly learn from what he was saying, and he had such conviction. And he was truly an example to behold when you would see him speaking, and he had this jolly laugh, even though he didn't smile a lot, but when he laughed, it was like a really hearty laugh. And he used to invite us to go to Villanueva. So for me, I will always remember David and Villanueva as one, because he gave a lot of his time to Villanueva. So I would just want to remember him the way I remembered him. I didn't go see him at the end, but the last communication I had with him was when him and his wife sent me a congratulation when I won my 3rd term on the Elmrock School Board, and said, Dolores, we are so proud of you. He says, we congratulate you, we voted for you, and we support you. And I have that letter at home, and every once in a while, I'll pull it out and I read it. And it's very good for me. I feel really good to know I have a piece of him with me still. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Well, once again, we thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure.
Sandra Escobar.
Alfredo Dominguez.
Roy Avila.
Ramona Rodriguez.
Frank Garcia.
I'm Rose Flores.
Dr. Martinez. Danny Garza.
Mary Caballero. When they had the coronation, I used to make the decorations. I had a lot of help though. A lot of help with a lot of ladies from here.
When did you get involved with the GI Forum?
I don't remember. I was never a member, but I did get involved anyway.
Thank you.
Frank.
Thank you very much for all your work.
You're welcome.
We're still here, huh?
Ándale. Yeah.
We're still here.
Give me a call and we'll get
I will,
together again, okay?
I will.
Frank, you're in dozens of pictures of David stuff that las voy a mandar. Because I remember when you guys were working hard.
Yes, we all did. You can't give credit to one person. Everybody was involved in it.
When did you meet David?
I met him in the mid 60s. He was playing ball. Like they brought it up that he was the coach. He wasn't the player. He was the coach, and that's why I met him.
How old were you?
At that time, I was about 22 years old. Yeah.
And then you were involved for many years with the GI Forum?
Oh yes. Yeah, they recruited me in 1968, I think. They come and tell me, you got to join the forum. I says, what's the forum? He says, it's a veterans, Mexican-American veterans organization. I says, I don't have time for that. Oh, you come down, you're going to enjoy it. So I did. I joined it, and they put me to work, and I worked up for about 40-something odd years. I worked with it, and that's I think that's why I'm so wore out now. But it was a pleasure though.
Were you
Were you a commander or chairman?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I served as commander 5 years, 5 terms. I served as a vice commander about 2 terms. I was a chaplain. I was a sergeant at arms. I did everything, almost everything.
Who were you in?
The Army. Yeah.
When did you serve in the Army?
In the 61. Yeah.
Thank you for all your work.
Oh, well, I'll just mention a few things.
Say your name.
My name is Rosa Campos, middle name Treviño from Texas. And for what you're doing, you know, the documentation that you need. I came to San Jose in 1965, Halloween night, and one of the institutions that is very important in this community is Our Lady of Guadalupe. That was my first parish, so I have history from there, you know. Also, the farm workers was another organization that my husband and I were very involved in, still are. I've been supporting the UFW for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years. So yeah. And then from then on, you can always contact me. I turned in the paper, okay? Thank you.
Who was your husband?
Eloy Campos. My husband was Eloy Campos. He passed away April 22nd, 2015.
What did he do in his life?
He was in 1966, March, was it March 15th, I believe? 1966. He, coming from Texas, had been working at a car wash for about 6 months. Ford was hiring, so he went to Ford and got hired. And that was good because he had a steady job. And, you know, it was a good job. It paid the bills.
Was he part of an employee group?
He belonged to the United Auto Workers, a very, very important group that actually helped Cesar. 1966 was the year that their president, Walter Reuther, joined Cesar to do the Lena March. So yeah, that was United Auto Workers has always been very, very important in the communities, all different communities, you know, certainly our communities, because they supported my husband in all kinds of endeavors. You know, they would pay his salary.
Was he, what was the Latino group that worked at Ford?
You know, I don't know about a Latino group, but I know that there were some. I don't know about Latino groups, but I do know of some members of the Latino community, you know, some of the guys that were members of the Brown Berets. I still know at least 1 or 2 of them. So, yeah. Ray Ramirez is one of them. He lives in the community. Yeah.
Do you have any children?
Oh, yeah. I am very proud of my 2 children. My oldest is my daughter Nora. She's been on the city council for 2 terms, been on the assembly for 6 years, termed out in 2016, and I have a beautiful grandson that's 9 years old, Jack Campos Struthers.
Well, I am here because we're celebrating David's life. I didn't know him very well, but I knew of him. Yes, he did have a very colorful life, and I'm sorry to hear his passing. And my name is Lupe Aguilar, and well, I am here because we're celebrating David's life. I didn't know him very well, but I knew of him. Yes, he did have a very colorful life, and I'm sorry to hear his passing. My name is Lupe Aguilar, and I moved here in the 70s when I got married to my only husband, and I've been here now. This is my home. San Jose is my home. I'm originally from Mountain View. I was raised there in Mountain View, so that's where I'm from. And I retired from the county of Santa Clara. I worked over there 30 years, and thank God that I'm healthy and that we're here.
What did you do for the county?
I was a floater clerk.
Did you run into any interesting stories hanging out at the county government?
A lot of interesting stories, but
tell us one.
Well, you know, Santa Clara County was called Santa Claus County because we used to help the people. Our government, our political representatives have always been a people that help the county, help our residents here. So we were known as Santa Claus County because they kind of like let the rules, go down the website, and they were able to help a lot of people. So it's not just now our county supervisors with Ascension City. It's not just now, but it's been a tradition. So I'm very happy of our county that we are Ascension City. And I work for Supervisor McCorkadale. That's where I started. And he was a champion of the people. In fact, they had his 80th birthday not too long ago, and I got invited. He's getting really old up there in age, but I'm old too now. But thank you.